After 2 nights at the Park Hyatt Toronto, it's time to move on to our next destination. And to get there, we'll be flying Air France business class from Toronto Pearson to Paris CDG. Once we were dropped off at the airport, we took the train to Terminal 3, where the Air France check-in counters are located. The terminal was pretty busy today, but luckily, because we were flying business class, we were able to use the Sky Priority check-in lane, which had no line. After the agent printed out our boarding passes, they sent us over to the priority security lane, and in less than 15 minutes we were through security and ready to head to the lounge. Air France does not have its own dedicated lounge at Toronto Pearson, so business class passengers are instead given access to the KLM Crown Lounge. Our expectations for this lounge were pretty low, since North American airport lounges are usually kinda mid, and Toronto is an outstation after all, but this lounge was very much comparable to Air Canada's own Maple Leaf Lounge. In fact, I'd say it's even better because it was far less crowded than the MLL. Sure, the lounge is not very big, but there were quite a few empty tables, which isn't something you can say about the MLL these days. The food was also a pleasant surprise. Again, my expectations were low, but I found a lot of edible items. My favorite was the tofu dumplings, but the pesto pasta, smoked salmon, and potato gratin were also good. There was a pretty big and varied selection of hot dishes and snacks and desserts, and the salad bar was decently stocked too. I don't really pay attention to the alcohol offerings at lounges, but this one looked pretty average to me, and I did really appreciate this special non-alcoholic sparkling wine that they had. Finally, of course, there's a nice coffee and tea area as well. Overall, this is not a lounge you need to go out of your way to try, but it definitely beats the overcrowded Plaza Premium and Maple Leaf lounges. Now let's get to boarding. Boarding did not go as smoothly as we hoped because we got moved from our original selected seats to a less ideal configuration. The gate agent didn't even point it out or give any kind of explanation, so we wouldn't even have known that we were bumped if Kevin hadn't remembered our original seat numbers. It wasn't the best way to start our flight, but let's see if the rest of our experience goes any better. As you can see from the seat map, if you're traveling as a couple, it's best to go for these E and G seats instead of seats D and H, because you'll be seated much closer together. Unfortunately, we were moved to a pair of D and H seats, which are far apart and more exposed to the aisle, and it's not quite as cozy. Otherwise, if you're flying solo, we'd probably recommend one of the seats close to the window, which would be the A and L seats. Seat selection issues aside, first impressions were good. The cabin is mostly white and navy with red accents, very French of them. Also, each seat comes with a hanger. We were confused at first because there's really no space to hang a coat at your seat, but it turns out there's basically a sort of coat check in the galley. The flight attendants will take your coat from you and then return it at the end of the flight. Again, very French. We've never experienced this on any other business class flight, but why am I not surprised that it's a French airline doing this? It's a very nice touch. On the side facing the aisle, you have an adjustable armrest, and right above that are some seat controls as well as a reading light. On the other side of the seat is an armrest, which you can fold up to better access the literature pocket underneath. Additionally, there is another set of controls which let you select the preset positions of lie flat, recline, or upright. The seat itself is quite comfy, and once you're seated, even these aisle seats feel surprisingly private, even though there are no sliding doors. Another perk of sitting closer to the aisle is the larger footwell, which is especially noticeable in lie flat mode. If you're tall, this could be a good reason to go for the aisle seats over the window seats. Next to your head is this convenient little storage cubby with a mirror. This holds a bottle of Evian along with a pair of headphones. Spoiler alert, not noise cancelling and not comfy. There's also this remote that you can use to control the IFE or call a flight attendant, although the controls are extremely finicky.
As boarding completes, the flight attendant comes over with a welcome drink of orange juice or champagne. While we're here, let's check out the IFE. The screen is touchscreen and is much more responsive than the IFE remote, if it actually works. For most of the flight, all of the IFEs in business class were frozen on the welcome screen. I should mention here that Air France does typically offer free Wi-Fi for business class, but it also did not work on this flight. Right under the IFE screen is a charging outlet, and also the tray table slides out from here as well, which I'll show you when the meal service starts.
Speaking of meal service, let's peruse the menu, shall we? There are 2 meal services on this 7.5-hour flight. For dinner, there's 4 choices for the main course. I chose the Zander fillet, which is apparently a type of fish, today I learned, and Kevin went with the beef cheek with a red wine demi-glace. All of the champagne, wine, beer, and spirits on the menu are French, which is quite fitting, and the non-alcoholic drinks include water, juices, soft drinks, coffee, and tea, but sadly no mocktails or specialty drinks. Once the plane reaches cruising altitude, the lights dim and turn into the colors of the French flag, and dinner service begins. Air France does not have a meal pre-order option, but lucky for us, neither of our meal choices ran out. Most of the meal is served all on the same tray, except that once you're done the appetizer, they'll come and switch it out for your main. You bet I was excited for the baguette on this French flight, but it was just very okay. It was pale, a bit tough, and very, very slightly warmed. Please know I'm wearing sunglasses because I'm trying to beat jet lag by avoiding light on this flight, not because I'm crazy. Disappointingly, there is only one starter available for this meal, and that is roasted duck breast. I gave mine to Kevin and he quite enjoyed it. Kevin loved his beef dish. It was tender, the sauce was rich, and it was thoughtfully balanced out with the onions. However, I didn't like my fish dish much. The Zander fillet was not badly cooked, but the cream sauce was overly cloying, and the flavor was way too one note in my opinion. After the main course, I tried the cheese plate, which includes mature cheese, blue cheese, and brie. All 3 of them taste fine, but none feel that special. Again, I'm disappointed because this is Air France, but I've had better cheese plates on Air Canada and Qatar. The dessert is a slice of chocolate and caramel cake. This was my favorite part of the meal. It was so creamy, light, and fluffy. Overall, despite having a team of Michelin-starred chef consultants and a sommelier, the menu feels a little uninspired, especially when you consider the prestige of French food. As soon as we finished eating, we tried to get to sleep as quickly as possible. Air France does not provide turn-down service in business class. There's also no mattress pad, and although the blanket and pillow were comfortable enough, we did kind of miss the seat covers that we've come to expect on many business class flights. The seat does recline fully flat, and although it's by no means a luxurious sleeping experience, we both did manage about 3 hours of sleep. Being so close to the aisle is a bit distracting, but the eye mask helps. For Kevin, who's a side sleeper, the larger footroom is definitely a plus. The flight attendants wake us up in time for breakfast, which is either a continental breakfast or a cheese omelette. Neither of us were very hungry, so we both went for the continental breakfast. This comes with a bowl of plain yogurt, a bowl of chopped fruit, and a croissant and bread roll. Again, I was super excited to try an Air France croissant, but it was quite shriveled and dry and somehow had a taste that I can only describe as oven grease. I mixed the fruit with the yogurt and that was the best part of the meal. Overall, we think the catering on Air France is pretty in line with the North American and European airline standard, maybe slightly above average, but nothing mind-blowing.
Before we land, let's take a look at the amenity kit. It comes in a small navy blue pouch with a fabric tulle texture, and the only branding is a small hippocampy logo on the front. It comes stocked with a toothbrush, toothpaste, a pen, eye mask, earplugs, socks, lip balm, and face cream. And also I like to point out that this is probably the cheapest pen I've ever seen in my life. Unlike Air France La Première, which are stocked by Sicily, the business class amenities are from clearance. As an airline that's positioning itself as the most premium airline in Europe, it is very disappointing to see how lackluster their business class amenity kit is. Moving on to the bathroom situation, there are 2 business class lavs in this aircraft. The first sits at the very front of the aircraft near the cockpit door, and the second sits between the business class and premium economy cabins by door 2. The forward lavatory is for business class passengers only, while the middle one is shared between business and premium economy. Considering that there are 34 passengers in business class, that's not a lot of bathrooms, but throughout the flight, the crew manages to keep both lavs relatively clean. The bathrooms are on par with business class, they are well lit and average sized. The full-length mirror is also a nice feature. In addition to paper cups for brushing your teeth, there's also sanitizing spray and a face mist, and above each toilet is the diaper changing station.
Overall, even with our involuntary seat change, we had a nice time on this flight. The cabin crew on this flight were friendly and very capable and professional. They got through meal service quickly and efficiently and offered to wake us up with just enough time before landing, which allowed us to maximize sleep on this red-eye flight. After breakfast, there was about an hour left in the flight, and praise be, the IFE was finally working at this point. I decided to watch Versailles to get into the mood for the next leg of our trip, and soon enough we were landing at Charles de Gaulle Airport. For a 7-hour flight across the Atlantic, Air France business class was a pleasant experience and one that we would definitely fly again. The cabin and seat were super clean, every crew member we interacted with was great, and the food was not bad. Next time, we'd love to try Air France's newer Opera business class seats and see how they compare.
So you may be wondering, how much does an experience like this cost? So the best way to book Air France business class or first class is to use their own Air France KLM Flying Blue miles. So for our flight from Toronto to Paris, it costs 60,000 points and about $250 in taxes and fees. So together that's 120,000 Flying Blue miles and about $500 in taxes and fees.
Now excuse us while we catch our train to Versailles. We have a great lineup of hotels over the next week, so stay tuned for our next video. We can't wait to bring you along.